On the bustling trade world of New Terra, vibrant markets hummed with life, echoing with the calls of merchants hawking their wares. Holo displays flickered, showcasing the latest technologies and luxury items. Among the throngs of shoppers and traders, Lyra Quinn, a skilled pilot with a reputation for daring stunts, wove through the crowd, her keen eyes scanning for trouble. She thrived on adrenaline, and today was no different. With her trusty starship, the Starlight, docked nearby, she felt invincible. But that invincibility was soon put to the test. As she rounded a corner, a sudden static buzz erupted in her earpiece. An urgent transmission crackled through, cutting through the chatter of the market. Mayday, Mayday, this is the UTA freighter Independence. We're under attack. Coordinates. Before the message could finish, static drowned it out. Lyra's heart raced. The Celestial Dominion had been expanding its reach, systematically subjugating any resistance. If a UTA ship was in distress, it could mean disaster for the entire sector. In an instant, she made a decision. Sprinting toward the Starlight Asterisk, she deftly navigated the crowded streets, her mind racing with the implications of what she had heard. As she reached her ship, she launched into the cockpit, activating the controls with practiced ease. The thrusters roared to life, and she shot into the sky, leaving the cacophony of the market behind her. As she ascended, the sight that met her eyes was a nightmare. The Independence struggled against 3 sleek Dominion fighters, their weapons firing relentlessly. Lyra felt a surge of determination. She couldn't let this ship fall, not on her watch. With a quick recalibration of her targeting systems, she dove into the fray. The Starlight responded like an extension of her own body, twisting and turning as she evaded enemy fire. Lyra's heart raced as she lined up her sights on the nearest fighter, unleashing a volley of laser fire. Her shots struck true, and the enemy fighter erupted in a burst of flames, sending debris spiraling into the void. But the battle was far from over. The remaining fighters turned their attention to her, and she could see the ominous figures of the Dominion pilots behind their cockpit shields. They were well-trained and ruthless. Lyra felt a chill of fear, but it was quickly replaced by adrenaline. She engaged in a deadly game of cat and mouse, her ship dancing through the stars as she evaded their fire and retaliated with precision. Just as she thought victory was within reach, a warning alarm blared. Lyra's ship jolted as enemy fire grazed her shields. She cursed under her breath, adrenaline fueling her focus. She needed to end this fight quickly. Channeling all her skills, she executed a risky maneuver, a tight roll that sent her beneath the Dominion ships, putting her directly behind them. With her target locked, she unleashed a concentrated barrage that caught both fighters off guard, destroying them in quick succession. With the immediate threat neutralized, Lyra's attention turned to the Independence. She rushed to assess its condition, but before she could initiate a comms check, the freighter's engine flared ominously. A new wave of dread washed over her as a sharp pain pierced her chest. The ship was crippled, and its crew was likely in peril. As she prepared to approach, a shadow swept over her cockpit. Lyra's instincts kicked in, and she glanced up to see a massive Dominion warship looming above them, ominous and powerful. Panic surged through her veins. She had to warn the UTA about this imminent threat. But first, she needed to rescue the Independence and its crew before it was too late. With determination etched on her face, Lyra set her course, her heart racing with the knowledge that the fight for freedom had only just begun. As the Starlight darted closer to the Independence, Lyra's heart pounded with urgency. The freighter hung precariously, its engine sputtering like a dying star. She quickly initiated a comm link, praying for a response. "This is Lyra Quinn of the Starlight. I'm coming in to assist. Can anyone hear me?" Static crackled for a moment, then a voice broke through. "Lyra, this is First Officer Daryl. We've lost power to the main engines, and the crew is trapped in the cargo bay. We need your help." "Hang tight, Daryl. I'll get you out," Lyra replied, determination sharpening her focus. She adjusted her ship's trajectory, calculating the safest approach. The looming shadow of the Dominion warship cast a chill over her, but she forced herself to concentrate. As she maneuvered around the wreckage of the previous skirmish, Lyra spotted a gap in the Dominion's defensive perimeter. The warship's attention was elsewhere, focused on securing the area around the Independence. This was her chance. She sent the Starlight into a tight descent, landing smoothly near the damaged freighter. After a swift scan of the surroundings, she exited her ship, her pulse racing. The cargo bay doors were sealed tight, and she could hear the distant echoes of distress signals coming from within. Lyra activated her personal shield and approached the door, checking her blaster and steeling her nerves. With a few quick movements, she hacked the lock, bypassing the security protocols. The doors slid open with a hiss, revealing chaos. Inside, cargo crates were strewn about, and the flickering emergency lights cast eerie shadows on the faces of the trapped crew. Daryl was pinned beneath a heavy crate, his face etched with pain. "Lyra," he called out, relief flooding his eyes as he saw her. "Hold on, I'll get you out." She quickly assessed the situation. With a surge of adrenaline, she leveraged her strength and began to lift the crate. With Daryl's help, they managed to shift it just enough for him to escape. He gasped as he scrambled to his feet, gratitude shining in his eyes. "Thank you, but we don't have much time," Daryl warned, glancing nervously toward the bay doors. "The Dominion is regrouping. We need to get everyone out." Lyra nodded, rallying the crew. "Listen up. We have to move fast. Follow me." As they sprinted toward the exit, the comlink crackled with static again. "Lyra, this is Captain Hall. We're trying to hold off the Dominion outside, but we can't hold them much longer. You need tow." Before he could finish, a thunderous explosion shook the freighter, and the lights flickered ominously. "We're out of time," Lyra shouted. "We have to move." The crew hurriedly followed her lead, their fear transforming into a desperate hope. As they reached the cargo bay exit, they could see the warship hovering ominously above them, its turrets swiveling to target the freighter. The captain and the remaining crew were struggling against the Dominion forces outside, and it was clear they needed backup. "Daryl, can you take command?" Lyra asked, feeling a surge of responsibility. "I'll buy you some time." "What? No, you can't," Daryl protested, his eyes wide with concern. "It's too dangerous." "I'll be fine," she assured him, her resolve firm. "Get everyone to the Starlight. I'll meet you there." With a reluctant nod, Daryl led the crew toward the ship as Lyra turned to face the door. As soon as she was sure they were safely away, she took a deep breath, stepping out into the chaos. The battle outside raged fiercely, blaster fire lighting up the darkening sky. Lyra sprinted toward the nearest group of Dominion soldiers, who were focused on the Independence. With a flick of her wrist, she activated her blaster, expertly taking out 2 enemies before they even knew she was there. The exhilaration of combat surged through her veins, pushing her forward. As more Dominion troops arrived, she took cover behind a cargo container, her mind racing. She had to think fast. She spotted a nearby energy conduit, its glowing core pulsing dangerously. If she could create a diversion, it might buy the Independence the time it needed to escape. "Here goes nothing," she whispered to herself. Taking a deep breath, Lyra sprinted toward the conduit, her heart pounding. With a well-placed shot, she blew it open, sending sparks flying and creating a massive explosion that sent shockwaves rippling through the area. "Get out," she yelled as the chaos unfolded, creating the perfect opportunity for the crew of the Independence to escape. The Dominion soldiers faltered, their attention drawn to the explosion. Lyra seized the moment, dodging blaster fire as she sprinted back toward the Starlight. As she boarded her ship, adrenaline coursing through her, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. With the Dominion closing in and the stakes higher than ever, She knew they had to unite their forces to confront the darkness that loomed over the galaxy. With the crew of the Independence safely aboard the Starlight, Lara barely had time to catch her breath. The Dominion warship loomed overhead, and she could see the fighters mobilizing to pursue them. "Daryl, get the crew ready for takeoff. We need to move now," she commanded, her voice steady despite the chaos. The hum of the ship's engines filled her ears as she punched in the coordinates for a safe jump point. Just as the ship shuddered beneath her, she caught sight of the Dominion fighters racing toward them, their cannons primed and ready. "Brace for impact," she shouted, gripping the controls tightly. The Starlight shot into the atmosphere, but the enemy was relentless. Blaster fire raked across her ship, jolting it violently. Lara's heart raced as she maneuvered through the tight canyons of New Terra, weaving in and out of the jagged cliffs. She could feel the tension in the cockpit, a mix of fear and determination igniting a fire within her. "Lyra, we've got incoming," Daryl warned, his voice strained. "They're on our tail." "Hang on," she replied, her focus sharp as she executed a daring barrel roll, narrowly avoiding a barrage of enemy fire. "I'll shake them off." As she dove deeper into the canyons, Lyra's instincts took over. She recalled the flight maneuvers her mentor, Captain Adrian Voss, had taught her. His voice echoed in her mind, urging her to trust her instincts. She pushed the ship to its limits, performing a series of rapid ascents and descents, making it nearly impossible for the Dominion fighters to keep up. With each narrow escape, the adrenaline surged through her veins. The tight spaces of the canyon played to her advantage, forcing the enemy to fly in less maneuverable formations. She could feel the crew's anxiety transform into exhilaration as they began to rally around her. "Almost there," she yelled, her voice filled with conviction. "Prepare for jump." As they neared the designated jump point, the Starlight was rocked by another explosion and alarms blared. "Shields at 50%. Daryl called out, panic creeping into his voice. "We won't survive another hit." Lyra gritted her teeth, determination coursing through her. "We will." Initiating jump in 3, 2, 1. With a deafening crack, the ship leaped into hyperspace, and the familiar stars streaked into lines of light around them. The sudden silence felt like a heavy weight lifting off her shoulders. They had escaped, but she knew this was only the beginning of their fight. As the crew caught their breath, Lyra turned to Daryl. "We need to regroup and come up with a plan. The Dominion won't stop hunting us, and we can't let them crush the UTA." Daryl nodded, his brow furrowed in thought. "We have to strike back while we still can. We need to send a message that humanity won't be oppressed." Lyra's mind raced with possibilities. "There's an old UTA supply depot in the Clara sector. It's underutilized and poorly guarded. If we can hit that, we can gather resources and perhaps even some intel on the Dominion's movements." As she laid out the plan, the crew's excitement grew. They were more than just survivors. They were part of something bigger, a rebellion against tyranny. The thought ignited a spark of hope in the room. After a brief planning session, they arrived at the Clara sector, the desolate planet appearing like a ghostly shadow against the starfield. The supply depot was nestled in a valley, surrounded by rugged mountains and obscured from view by dense clouds. As they descended, Lyra scanned the area for signs of Dominion presence. "Looks clear," she muttered, focusing on her instruments. "Daryl, prepare for landing. Everyone, get ready to move." The Starlight touched down with a soft thud, and the crew sprang into action. Lyra led the team, armed with blasters and a fierce determination. The depot loomed ahead, a sprawling structure covered in rust and neglect, but Lyra could sense the potential within its walls. As they approached, she noticed a faint glow emanating from the entrance, indicating that the facility was still operational. "Stay sharp," she warned. "We don't know what's waiting for us inside." With a deep breath, Lyra pushed open the door, which creaked ominously. The interior was dimly lit, filled with crates and machinery. The air felt heavy, thick with dust and the scent of abandoned technology. As they ventured further in, the sound of footsteps echoed down the corridor. "We're not alone," Lyra whispered, her senses heightened. The crew tensed, bracing for a confrontation. Just then, a group of Dominion soldiers rounded the corner, weapons drawn. "Freeze!" one of them shouted, but Lyra was faster. With a swift motion, she fired her blaster, striking the nearest soldier. The team erupted into action, blaster fire filling the air as they fought back against the Dominion forces. Amid the chaos, Lyra's heart raced with a mix of fear and exhilaration. This was their chance to send a clear message. The fight for their freedom had begun. Together, they pushed forward, ready to reclaim what had been taken from them, and to inspire a galaxy to rise against oppression. The sound of blaster fire reverberated through the dimly lit supply depot, the air thick with smoke and the acrid scent of burning circuits. Lyra led her team deeper into the chaos, adrenaline coursing through her veins as they engaged the Dominion soldiers. The skirmish felt surreal, as if they were caught in a whirlwind of fury and determination. With every shot fired, the tide began to turn. The Dominion forces, caught off guard by the audacity of the coalition, faltered under the relentless onslaught. Lyra moved like a force of nature, ducking behind crates, taking down enemy soldiers with calculated precision. Daryl, at her side, covered her back, his face set in fierce concentration. But just as victory seemed within their grasp, the unexpected happened. A loud crash echoed through the depot, and a wave of panic washed over them. From the shadows emerged a familiar figure, Commander Ileana, a once trusted member of the coalition. Her armor gleamed, but the look in her eyes was cold and calculating. "Lyra," she shouted over the din, her voice sharp like a blade. "Stop this madness. You don't understand the forces you're playing with." Lyra narrowed her eyes, her heart pounding with confusion and betrayal. "Ileana, you're with the Dominion now, after everything we fought for." "Enough," Ileana snapped, her hand raised. "You're risking everything for a lost cause. The Dominion is too powerful. Join me, and we can salvage what's left." Before Lyra could respond, Daryl stepped forward, determination etched across his face. "You're the one who's lost, Ileana. You're choosing tyranny over freedom." Ileana's eyes flashed with anger. "You're blind, Daryl. You think your rebellion can topple the Dominion? They'll crush you, one by one." In that moment, a flicker of doubt crossed Lyra's mind, but she quickly pushed it aside. "We won't be crushed. We fight for those who can't." With a swift motion, Ileana activated her blaster. "Then you leave me no choice." The air crackled with tension as the two sides prepared for confrontation. The coalition soldiers braced themselves, ready to defend their ideals against the betrayal of one of their own. Just as a standoff seemed inevitable, the alarm klaxon blared throughout the depot. Red lights flashed ominously, signaling the arrival of reinforcements. Dominion ships had descended from orbit, and the sound of engines filled the air. "Damn it, we're out of time," Lyra shouted. "We have to get out of here." Ileana's smirk deepened, confidence radiating from her. "You're trapped. Surrender now, and I might spare your lives." "Never," Daryl retorted, firing a shot at Ileana, but she dodged swiftly, moving with the grace of a seasoned fighter. The energy pulse grazed the edge of her armor, singing it but failing to slow her down. Lyra's heart raced as she assessed their options. The exits were being barricaded, and the reinforcements were closing in. They were at a critical juncture, facing the collapse of their mission and the potential loss of their lives. "Everyone, regroup," she commanded, retreating toward a narrow passage at the back of the depot. In the heat of the moment, she could hear Ileana's taunts echoing behind them. "Run, Lyra. Run while you still can, but you'll never escape the Dominion." As they sprinted through the passage, Lyra could feel the weight of Ileana's betrayal settling heavily on her shoulders. They were losing allies, their ranks thinning with each encounter. Doubts crept into her mind. Had they underestimated the Dominion's resolve? Had they truly misjudged their chances against such an overwhelming foe? "Keep moving," Daryl shouted, pulling her back to reality. They reached a reinforced door, and Daryl activated the override controls. "This leads to the emergency exit. If we can get through, we might reach the Starlight." Just as the door slid open, a volley of blaster fire erupted behind them, forcing them to duck and take cover. Lyra glanced back to see Ileana leading a squad of Dominion soldiers, her expression a mask of fury and determination. "We need to go now," Daryl urged, pulling Lyra forward. They rushed through the door, hearts pounding as they navigated the dimly lit corridors, the sound of footsteps and blaster fire echoing ominously behind them. As they reached the hangar, Lyra's mind raced with uncertainty. They had faced countless challenges, but now betrayal loomed large, threatening to shatter their unity. What would become of them if they could no longer trust one another? They spotted the Starlight nestled in the shadows. Lyra pushed her fears aside and focused on the task at hand. They had to escape, regroup, and rethink their strategy. She couldn't let Ileana's betrayal sow doubt among her team. As they boarded the ship, she made a silent vow to expose the truth and inspire her crew to stand firm in their fight for freedom. The battle was far from over. With renewed resolve, they prepared for takeoff, determined to rise above the shadows of betrayal and ignite the spark of rebellion across the galaxy. The Starlight shook as Lyra powered up the engines, the din of blaster fire still echoing in her ears. Adrenaline surged through her, propelling her forward as she navigated the ship's controls. Daryl and the crew were securing their weapons and preparing for takeoff, their faces set with grim determination. They had narrowly escaped Ileana's betrayal, but the fight was far from over. "Lyra, we're getting reports of Dominion forces mobilizing across the sector," Daryl warned, his eyes scanning the tactical readouts. "We need to get out of here before they tighten their grip." "I'm on it," Lyra replied, her heart pounding as she initiated the pre-flight checks. "If we can jump to the Eridani system, we might find a safe haven among the remaining coalition forces. We need to regroup and strategize." With the engines roaring to life, the hangar doors began to open. Just as the last mechanism unlocked, a squadron of Dominion fighters soared into the hangar, blasters firing. Lyra's instincts kicked in. She twisted the controls, pulling the Starlight into a sharp ascent, dodging the incoming fire. "Hold on," she shouted, guiding the ship through a series of evasive maneuvers. The cockpit shook violently as enemy fire grazed the hull. She clenched her jaw, knowing they needed to escape before the Dominion reinforcements overwhelmed them. "Daryl, get ready to engage those fighters," she commanded, her voice steady despite the chaos. He nodded, his expression fierce as he readied the ship's weapon systems. As they climbed higher, Lyra could see the sprawling expanse of the depot below, smoke billowing into the atmosphere, remnants of the fierce battle still raging. It was a stark reminder of what they were fighting against, the Dominion's relentless pursuit of control. "Enemy fighters incoming. 2 o'clock. Daryl shouted, his fingers flying over the controls as he targeted the nearest fighter. Firing. The Starlight rocked as Daryl unleashed a barrage of laser fire, striking one of the enemy ships and sending it spiraling into the ground. The remaining fighter veered off, but Lyra knew they couldn't afford to let up. The Dominion would soon regroup, and they needed to put distance between themselves and the depot. "Jumping to Eridani in 3, 2, 1, she called, and with a flick of her wrist, she engaged the hyperdrive. The stars stretched into lines, and for a moment, they were enveloped in the exhilarating rush of hyperspace. As the Starlight emerged in the Eridani system, a sense of relief washed over Lyra. The vibrant colors of the nebula surrounding them contrasted starkly with the darkness they had just escaped. However, She knew better than to let her guard down. Scanners indicate coalition ships nearby, Daryl announced, his voice filled with hope. If we can make contact, we might be able to rally more support. Let's establish a link, Lyra said, her heart racing with renewed purpose. She activated the comms, her hands steady as she set up the transmission. This is Lyra Quinn of the Starlight, calling any coalition forces in the Eridani system. We're in need of immediate assistance and intel on Dominion movements. A tense moment passed, and just as doubt began to creep in, a crackling voice responded. Starlight, this is Captain Zane of the UTA Resolute. We read you loud and clear. What's your status? We've engaged Dominion forces at a supply depot on New Terra. We sustained heavy losses but managed to escape with a small team. Ileana has defected to the Dominion, Lyra relayed, urgency lacing her words. We need to regroup and strategize. The Dominion is mobilizing against us. Copy that, Lyra. We've heard of increased Dominion activity across the sector. We're currently gathering coalition ships for a counteroffensive. We'll rendezvous with you in the Eridani system within the hour. As the transmission ended, Lyra felt a flicker of hope igniting in her chest. They weren't alone. Everyone, we have a chance. The coalition is mobilizing for a counteroffensive. We need to prepare. The crew rallied, bolstered by the news. Daryl and the others shared ideas, strategizing how to use their limited resources to maximum effect. They quickly began to review the ship's inventory, reproposing any salvageable materials and gear from the Independence. As they worked, Lyra's thoughts turned to Ileana. The betrayal stung, a wound that would take time to heal. But she knew the fight wasn't over, not while there were still allies willing to stand against tyranny. The coalition had once been a family, and she was determined to unite them again. Let's make our stand, she declared, her voice resolute. We fight for freedom. We fight for each other. Together, we will turn the tide against the Dominion. With newfound determination, they set their course, ready to reclaim their future and inspire hope across the galaxy. The battle for freedom was far from over, but together, they would forge a new path, one that would echo through the stars. The Starlight glided through the star-studded expanse of the Eridani system, anticipation building among the crew. Lyra stood at the helm, her heart racing as they approached the coordinates provided by Captain Zane. The coalition fleet was gathering, an alliance of ships and warriors ready to stand against the Dominion's oppressive grasp. Captain, we're receiving the coalition signal, Daryl announced, excitement bubbling in his voice. They're in the vicinity and ready to engage. Bring us alongside the Resolute, Lyra commanded, her gaze fixed on the flickering lights of the coalition vessels coming into view. Each ship represented not just a vessel of war, but a symbol of resistance, a flicker of hope in the dark void of oppression. As they drew closer, Lyra could see the Resolute, a formidable battleship, and the heart of the coalition's newfound strategy. Its hull was adorned with the UTA emblem, battered but unbroken. She felt a swell of pride and determination. They were not just fighters, they were the vanguard of change. Lyra, Captain Zane is hailing us, Daryl said, his voice tinged with excitement. Put him through, Lyra replied, her nerves steadying as the familiar image of Captain Zane flickered onto the main screen. Lyra, good to see you made it. Zane's voice was firm, a beacon of reassurance. We've gathered what forces we could. We have intel that the Dominion is planning a major offensive in this sector. We need to strike first. Agreed, Lyra said, her resolve strengthening. We've seen what they're capable of. They'll stop at nothing to crush us. Zane nodded, his expression serious. Our forces are still gathering. We need to coordinate a plan to hit the Dominion supply lines before they mobilize fully. If we cut off their resources, we can shift the balance in our favor. As the crew buzzed with preparations, Lyra felt the weight of leadership settle on her shoulders. She had fought for freedom, but now the stakes were higher than ever. Lives depended on their actions. "Let's split into strike teams," she proposed. "We can distract the Dominion while our main forces target their supply depot. Daryl, you'll lead one team to engage the fighters. I'll take another group to breach their defenses." "I'll make sure our team is ready," Daryl replied, confidence radiating from him. "We'll hit them hard and fast." "Make sure everyone knows the plan," Lyra added, her voice firm. "This is our moment. We take the fight to them." With the strategy in place, they launched into the fray, their ships soaring through the darkness. The Coalition fleet was a swarm of determination, fighter craft darting like fireflies against the backdrop of stars. Lyra's heart pounded as they approached the Dominion's main stronghold. "Engage the enemy," Zane's voice echoed through the comms, the battle cry igniting the flames of rebellion. The space around them erupted into chaos. Blaster fire lit up the void as Coalition fighters engaged the Dominion squadrons. Lyra led her team into the heart of the conflict, weaving through debris and enemy fire, her instincts guiding her every move. "Keep pushing forward," she urged her team, adrenaline coursing through her. "We can't let them regroup." As they approached the Dominion supply depot, the reality of their situation became clear. The Dominion forces were formidable, their ships coordinated and relentless, but the Coalition fighters pressed on, a wave of defiance against the darkness. "Lyra, we're taking heavy fire," Daryl shouted through the comms, urgency in his voice. "We need to break through their defenses." With a steely resolve, Lyra rallied her team. "We're not backing down. We fight for freedom. For every person who has suffered under Dominion rule." They charged forward, blaster fire illuminating the dark expanse. Lyra felt the surge of power as they approached the depot's core. With one final push, they breached the outer defenses and chaos erupted. "Prepare to engage the ground forces," she shouted, leading her team into the heart of the enemy stronghold. The Dominion soldiers scrambled, caught off guard by the sudden surge of Coalition forces. In that moment, Lyra felt the tide of battle shifting. They were no longer fighting to survive. They were fighting to reclaim their destiny. As blaster fire erupted around them, she pressed forward, the weight of her purpose driving her. With each victory, they carved a path through the chaos. The Dominion's forces faltered, and the spirit of rebellion ignited in the hearts of those who had lost hope. The Coalition was more than a military. It was a movement, a call to arms for all who desired freedom. As the battle raged on, Lyra felt the dawn of a new era approaching. Together, they would eclipse the empire of oppression, transforming fear into strength and despair into hope. They were the vanguard of change, and together, they would forge a future free from tyranny.